Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Noah and I am your course advisor for Leadership for Development. I'm here to answer queries about the course and applying and help guide you through the application process. I'll talk a little bit more about how to apply at the end of today's session, but the Masters in Leadership for Development is delivered in partnership with the University of Melbourne and focuses on the practical skills, the global connections and collaborative outlook needed to make real difference in the development world. The Masters will provide students with confidence to lead and tackle contemporary development challenges. If you want to reposition yourself as a leader in development, but don't want to take time out from your important work to study, then this course is absolutely for you. The fully online Masters course will support you to learn on the job, and we'll talk a little bit more about the structure later on. The course is designed for individuals looking for flexibility, and looking to work in or alongside the global development sector as a manager, a planner, policymaker, consultant, entrepreneur, researcher, the list goes on. So in a short while, our guest speaker, Wouter Grove, and the coordinator of the Western Cape CoLab for eInclusion and social institutional planning and manager of the Future Innovation Lab, will talk to us about the lessons, challenges and opportunities he has learned as a leader. You're also going to hear from our Deputy Course Director, Dr. Natalie Cunningham, who will also be talking about this course and who the course is for. And we will be having a Q&A at the end of the session, so please do type your questions in the chat as the presentation happens. So Natalie, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about the course and who the course is made for briefly before we move on.
Thank you, Noah. That's I think you've mentioned it's primarily for people working in the development sector, from NGOs to government sector people to even the private sector who want to make a difference to the development areas. And we have candidates from all over the world that apply to this program. So what's wonderful is you also learn from one another, which is really great. The topic that we have today is also covered in our Leadership for Development Masters, and digital development is seen as an integral part of the Masters. And we have in the audience as well our lecturer, Dr. Jaco Renkin, who leads the digital development unit and section. And so he's here as well if there are any specific questions about what we do in the program. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Wouter. I've known Wouter for many, many years. We go back a long way, and he has such a wide range of skills that I'm not going to even attempt to go through his CV. I'm going to ask you to just highlight your experience and yourself very briefly, Wouter, because it's very hard to refine and focus on your background. So let's move over to Wouter, and thank you very much, Wouter, for being here and for sharing these lessons.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Noah. Welcome everyone. It's a real privilege to be here. And as just mentioned, in the background there is quite a lot of rain in Cape Town at the moment. So kindly just let me know if my sound level, if I need to speak a bit louder in order to be heard. My background is basically I've come via industry into academic environment, mainly working on digital inclusion projects. We've been for the past 10 years been busy in this field, and my own research mainly focuses on digital platform design, but digital platform design specifically in emerging developing country contexts. I've also got the privilege of managing a very interesting project called the Future Innovation Lab. That's going to be the focus of what I'll be talking about today. And I would like to just highlight maybe a couple of leadership lessons from these development projects that we're busy with, focusing on this Future Innovation Lab. And then at the same time, I'll also reflect on a couple of personal leadership lessons that one gets to learn rather quickly, working in some pretty challenging contexts sometimes. So yeah, let me just sketch for those of you unfamiliar with the South African context. We're based in Cape Town, South Africa, where about 50% of our population got access to the internet, and it's predominantly mobile first. So about 84% access to the internet through mobile phones. But we've got the second highest data cost in the world. So as you know from South Africa's history, it really is a country with enormous levels of inequality. If you look at access to the internet, many of the barriers are still related to devices. So the cost of equipment is high. There's issues around sort of the lack of interest in actually understanding and seeing the benefits of digital inclusion, and lack of knowledge, skills, confidence, and really several different barriers that make ICT development projects quite challenging. So if we look at some of the literature, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, I think the importance of digital technologies can potentially bring economic dividends. There's been quite a lot of work around this done. At the same time, the benefits really depend on who's actually participating in these processes. So there's lots of literature around digital divides, unequal distribution of digital dividends. And also, Richard Hicks, who's at Manchester, just I think in the week published a study that I found very interesting around the digital inclusion for those who are digitally included. I think it's a nuanced concept, quite a complicated concept. And from a leadership perspective, one needs to understand the nuances of the digital inclusion debates in order to ensure that benefits accrue to the people that we really want to benefit from these programs. Okay, just a short bit of background about the unit that I'm working in, the Western Cape CoLab. It's an interdisciplinary applied research unit. We focus on developing models, frameworks, and different capabilities through multi-stakeholder partnerships and research and interventions. One of the interventions is, maybe just before I go into detail there, it's really about finding ways of breaking down silos within organizations, but also within societal collaboration structures. So social innovation, the way of dealing with new social practices, addressing existing problems through new practices, new innovation, new ways of addressing problems becomes really critical. And from our experience, a lot of the usual practices are simply just not effective. And one often needs to think a bit outside the box. You need to also leverage and develop deep partnerships. And I think that's there's often a lot of talk around dealing with multi-stakeholder partnerships, but the risk is always that these turns into almost hit and run type of approaches, whereas deep partnerships that are really strategically aligned is what's creating the most impact and the most value. I think another thing that we've also found very useful is having common frames of reference when you are talking to people about what a challenge such as digital inclusion entails. So we've, for example, are using in all our interventions a specific way of guiding our thinking and our interventions and strategies around what is digital skills development, what is digital inclusion, and where do interventions fit within that framework. Okay, so on to the specific challenge that I want to highlight. One of the biggest challenges in South Africa is what's often known as needs, young persons that are not engaged in education, employment, or training. So currently, we're sitting with 44% plus of people, of the youth specifically, that are not engaged at all. They've effectively almost given up on chasing opportunities because they are seeing a lot of the barriers as being too high. And we really, in partnership with our corporate sponsors for this program, wanted to develop a new model and test new ways of looking at this challenge of youth unemployment. So the example that I'm going to be talking through is a project called the UWC Samsung Future Innovation Lab. In short, the project focuses on creating pathways for previously disadvantaged youth and vulnerable youth to become employed, gain access to learning and training opportunities, and find ways of gaining meaningful employment so that we can address the societal challenges. And I think in our context, there's quite a lot of research that also shows specifically issues such as the underrepresentation of previously disadvantaged women, as well as people with disabilities that need specific strategic attention. So in short, we want to create new pathways and new ways of addressing these challenges. So what the Samsung Future Innovation Lab is basically then doing is we're addressing societal challenges. We're trying to create bridges to close access gaps and really influence the aspirations of the youth, but at the end of the day, impact youth unemployment. Right, so this is a deep ecosystem partnership. It's part of a 10-year project that forms part of Samsung's equity equivalent investment program. It's a government-funded funding structure, and it's really enabled us through quite an innovative funding mechanism to address people and graduates that would otherwise not have access to higher education. And we are also in this program, even though we're developing software developers, we are not solely focused on things like mathematics and previous software development experience. We are really trying to focus on people that are almost falling between the cracks of other initiatives. And for us, it's very exciting that some of our first cohort graduates, because we've been having real impact on the lives of people that really needed, some of them just needed a bit of a break and a bit of an opportunity. And it's been really awesome to see this happening. I'm not going to spend, just for time constraints, I'm not going to spend a lot of time now on dealing with the alignment with the SDG goals. I think this is something that's almost self-evident, that we are aligning these initiatives with our national government strategy, but also with the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically addressing aspects like unemployment, skills development. So in short, the program, we're focusing on developing software development skills and digital social innovation, and doing that in a very applied manner, and really focusing on creating pathways for students so that they can access real opportunities in industry for meaningful employment. I think that's the key focus. So short summary of the structure is we've got 60 students that are going into a program over 6 months. They're doing short courses that are integrated in a program presented by industry experts. It culminates in a project-based learning exercise called the Future Innovation Challenge, effectively an extended hackathon over 6 months while we're developing skills, while we are taking people through the process of creating digital products. And then there's also further integration into internship programs We specifically focused on in-demand skills like robotic process automation, with the overarching goal to increase entrepreneurship uptake, employment uptake, and articulation into higher education opportunities. But you will see there at the bottom that this is also obviously informed by monitoring and evaluation and continuous iteration. And the most important thing for us, and this was one of the key leadership challenges, is really also looking at how do we support the beneficiaries of this program. Some of the challenges that we faced were really quite significant. I mean, the challenges were not as much technical as they were almost logistical. Challenges with students that are living in such dire home circumstances that they cannot attend class because simply due to a flash flood, all their clothing is literally wet, so they cannot get to class. We're talking very real, very specific challenges that impacts things like self-belief, it impacts stress tolerance, it impacts the ability to function effectively in teams. There's really a lack of supportive home learning environments, lack of learning skills, and also lack of experience in building connections to link to industry. And looking at how one can address this was quite challenging. Some of the outcomes that we've had, I'm not going to again go into a lot of detail here. I think that the program has made a real difference in the lives of numerous young people. Those are some of our first cohort graduates. They are all at the moment employed as junior software developers in software development companies, and all of them came to our program effectively not having access to higher education at all. So it has been quite a learning experience for us as well. So in short, the pathways of to opportunity here looks at building skills, building knowledge, and building attitude, the normal definition of competence. But it's also about building network skills. How do you actually connect people and their knowledge, skills, and attitude to the network in industry? And through further employment training opportunities, internships, entrepreneurship stimulation, etc., we are aiming them to impact their personal family environments, but also then obviously the larger benefits in terms of societal benefits. I'm not going to go through this in a whole lot of detail. Suffice it as if we boil this down, we've been able, even during the COVID pandemic, to create opportunities for beneficiaries that would otherwise have been excluded to access further education and training opportunities. A lot of the interventions resulted in direct employment. So people that were sort of in that neat category of never been employed, almost lost interest, and currently they are in employment. So the program is definitely having positive impacts. We've done a whole lot of monitoring and evaluation studies around this. We're focusing very strongly on addressing the unemployed female, specifically the gender inequality gap as well. So our current group that's actually finishing at the end of this month are looking at 90% female participation. So that's, for us, that's fantastic. We've learned quite a lot of lessons, and this is from a leadership, but also from a strategy point of view. Things like our initial assumptions were we onboard students in 2 or 3 days. And we've now adapted that to taking our onboarding to 2 or 3 weeks, to take it much slower, to really question our own assumptions about how students and with what students are working through the door. We have found that some of the assumed skills that we assumed to be in place were not there, and it's due to no fault of the students. It's simply from the societal context that they grew up in, they just never had those chances. We also found it very beneficial to really embed ourselves in the technical ecosystem and connect them with real people in industry as often as possible throughout the process. We also focused on really addressing industry demand very directly. So the specific software stack that our students are focused on, we know there's demands. We've got companies lined up that are looking for people in these fields. And the other thing is balancing in terms of sort of guest lectures. We're really putting some of the a balance of local people that have been very successful, former students that have been awesome role models that come from exactly the same place as our current students come. And at the same time, we're also focusing a lot on broadening horizons. So really focusing on exposing them to some of the top people in the world. We've literally had some of the best global software developers in the broader Microsoft community giving guest lectures on a regular basis. We've got some of the actual Microsoft team that's working on that's writing the software the students are using to develop their applications, working with the students on a Saturday having pizza with them. And I think the balance between letting someone dream big, but at the same time showing them that it's possible from a really pragmatic perspective is really important. I think just the quick comment on linking this also to some of the other literature, specifically Alan Ellsperth's model around the digital divide. It's really, I think as leaders, we need to acknowledge this as a complex and multidimensional phenomenon. There's a lot of emphasis at the moment on digital transformation, and quite often it is seen only as a technical transformation, whereas this is at the end of the day, socio-technical, very deeply human process that we need to retain. For the benefit of time, I'm going to skip through this because I just want to show you some examples of what the students have attained. Remember, these are young people. Some of them have never, they literally didn't know how to save a file on a computer, because it's a mobile-first country. Interaction with some of the devices that we take for granted are not always to be assumed. So there's just some of our student projects where you can crime reporting in a local area that creates a very detailed map of certain safe zones in a particular community. The two ladies there developed an application called No More that focuses on connecting people with gender-based violence, that face gender-based violence challenges in a confidential way to relevant resources in their area. Environmental sustainability, I'm going to skip through this a little bit. Some like local level marketplaces for local farmers. Very interesting application that was developed on how to assist individuals with that are affected by postpartum depression. And this is really one of the most almost underappreciated and underaddressed phenomenon that we find in the South African context. Government hospitals and the health infrastructure in general are really battling to cope with this. So they created a very innovative solution to link people to resources and support communities. I'm going to just quickly show you a short video of one of our students that's Flingewe Makubu, and apologies. She started through the program, basically the whole program that we went through, and then she also did the 6-month program without any software development knowledge beforehand, and then thereafter she completed a 9-month internship. So let me just give you, she's currently employed in a software development company. I'm just going to hand over to Flengy for a moment.
Hello, hi. My name is Lingiwe Makubu, and I was part of the Microsoft App Factory. And I'm here to just share about my experience in the Microsoft App Factory. Steve Jobs once said that everyone should learn how to code because it teaches you how to think, right? So as a member of the Microsoft App Factory, I've also learned how to think. I remember when I first got a call that I was part of the students who are joining the Microsoft App Factory. Like, I couldn't believe it. But looking back now, I just didn't trust in myself enough to think that I was deserving of it, you know? And when we started though, everything changed. More than just programming was taught to me. I discovered that programming is more about coming up with solutions that are simpler, more efficient, and more long-term. I learned how to recognize an issue, acquire facts, and then come up with a solution. I learned the importance of planning before building the solution, which takes time, but it's like delivering a solution that meets the needs of the end user. It was quite challenging, and yeah, it's exciting. A lot of research was required in order to.
Right. For the purposes of time, I'm going to be very rude and interrupt Slingiwe there. I just want to highlight another quick example, and then I want to wrap up. I want to tell a quick story of this young gentleman. His name is Sibusiso Mwabi, and he is one of our students that right. He's one of our students that went through, again, both the software development program and the internship. As a 19-year-old, his mother passed away. He was looking, basically single mother that passed away. He's looking after 4 of his siblings. And through this whole program, we've been able to really have a significant impact. He's currently working as a software developer in a potential, billion rands startup, and he's able to support his family, etc. So, I think we must not underestimate the importance from a leadership perspective to sometimes just also focus on what's really important. Is at the end of the day, we need to make the world a better place. We need to have impact and do things that we know by heart is really the right thing to do. And quite often I always want to call it the technology-driven, data-driven world that we're moving towards. We need to make sure that we don't forget those specific aspects. Jaco, I will. Okay, Jaco, I'll deal with your question in a moment. I actually knew that you would ask, or that someone would pick up on that. One of my colleagues, there's actually a newer graph that I should have included, or a newer table I should have included on the results there. I will explain that in a second. I'm just going to wrap up with the fact that and this is now specifically dealing with any of these type of interventions, any of these type of programs, support of the beneficiaries of the programs is really key. And this is psychosocial support more than just, this is not just about devices, it's not just about money, it's not just about the things that are easy to fix, in the sense that if you throw enough money at it, you can have an impact. The student support and the beneficiary support is really about looking at things like holistic wellness. How do you take people that have effectively, South Africa's got very high crime rates, with one of the most unequal countries in the world. We've got a very difficult history. A lot of people are still grappling with this. How do we go from survivalist type of mentalities to focusing on wellness, focusing on being, having growth mindsets, and really focusing on ensuring that we can create future leaders with our initiatives rather than just creating people that are, again, just continuing to survive rather than thrive. We also found dealing with group dynamics is often underestimated. Managing groups, managing conflicts, resilience. With industry partners, deep partnerships are definitely required. And what we also found in that sense, our software, our funding partners in the university were really very gracious in allowing us quite a lot of room for experimentation, is iterative development, fast adaptation of the course content, the way of delivery, and the way of the whole intervention structure is very important. We also came to realize the gap to formal employment is very significant. So in our redesign of our whole program now, we effectively started from a zero basis, and we really had a very hard look at what was not working. And that included the fact that the gaps that are there are still very, very big. Yeah, I'm going to close off by saying, I think at the end of the day, partnerships where we retain the humanity, we retain the heart and the focus and the real reason, the real vision why we are doing things is absolutely critical. And from a leadership perspective, and this is my last thought, it's very easy in developmental contexts to get bogged down in dealing with all the operational difficulties and losing touch of the strategic perspective and the really focus that you need on ensuring strategically that you are responsive, not only operationally. Right. If you just give me a second, maybe, Natalie, if there's any questions, I can deal with that. I'm just going to read quickly through your question, and then I will respond. Right. Yes, the numbers do not add up to 60 each. This is, apologies, this is...
Hi, sorry, I'm just going to read out the questions just so that everyone knows what's been asked, because only we can see it. So,
oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. So the question that the vote has been asked is, can you explain a bit more what is meant by selecting top candidates when the objective is indeed to catch those falling through the cracks of mainstream opportunities? Also, the numbers for the first two cohorts do not add up to 60 each. Could you please just explain that, because we just want to see the real difficulties alongside the successes. So,
okay.
To you.
Yeah, just to respond to that, that really deals with the issue of fast iteration. So in our very first cohort, we actually had 40 students doing software development, and then we added the same 40 students continued with social innovation. These courses were presented one after the other. And then we added another 40 students that are non-technical to the second group. So we wanted to, and that's why those numbers don't add up. I will share a clearer graphic with you in a second. But that explains the difficulty. I think if we are saying top candidates, if I'm saying top candidates here, it's not really top candidates in the traditional academic sense of the word. We are recruiting mainly on student attitude, and potential rather than strictly on mathematics marks in school. That's perhaps a good example is Flengiwe. The video that I showed, I mean, Flengi was technically, she slipped through the cracks in the sense that she didn't have any of the qualifications that we really required, yet we learned from that process, okay, she's got potential and she made a huge success of it. So we are always erring on the side of inclusion. And that's been a big challenge. I want to go as far as saying the easy way of doing this is going and simply selecting the top students from top schools, and that's it. We've deliberately not done that. We are focusing specifically on working through a network of rural intermediary organizations that we're working with, and doing our recruitment not with a big bang and huge press releases and marketing campaigns, but actually working through grassroots organizations to recruit. Now, if I can maybe just request for 2 seconds control of the screen, then I can just answer that question in more detail. I'm not sure if there's any other questions here. Jacko, this should make a bit more sense. So from our first group, again, the beneficiary, we had about a 90% completion rate. The beneficiary numbers were a little bit different. And from that, 24 job opportunities were basically created. 5 of them started the business and 7 in further education and training. The second cohort, this took place fully during COVID. So this was the first group, was presented in person up until the last month of the program, when we went into hard lockdown and we suddenly had to do everything via WhatsApp groups, which was a bit of an anticlimax. And then with the second group, this was fully during COVID, presented fully remotely, and you will see the drop off your completion rates here took an absolutely huge dive, simply because students did not have the supporting environment at home. And even though we tried to technically support with data, devices, etc., the fact that those environments were really not ideal had a massive impact on the completion rate, but also then on the creation of employment. Right. Thanks. Now I can hand back to you.
But I have one question for you as well. You spoke quite strongly about the needs that people had, that they were social and emotional, to support the digital knowledge. And I would just want to ask you, what do you think that people such as yourself and others who lead these initiatives, what do you think the skills are that a program such as ourselves, a Master's in Leadership for Development, need to develop? Because we believe that there are different skills that are needed if you lead in development than if you lead in a corporate environment. So what skills would be important for leaders?
Yeah, I think if I can name one, it's flexibility. And it's really flexibility to look at your own assumptions. You will quite often find people that have got industry experience or corporate experience or government experience going into a development leadership role, and then really critically looking at your own assumptions is absolutely important, and being honest with yourself. So real authenticity and sort of the personal mastery aspects of this is very important. Another often underestimated leadership skill is simply resilience. Sometimes you're dealing with really, really shockingly difficult situations. I can literally tell stories from working on these type of programs where in the middle of the program, your beneficiaries are victims of sexual assault, and they are too scared to leave their house to attend class. This is not your typical leadership situation that you will ever face in a, well, hopefully never face in more, in corporate or other situations. So I do think having that resilience, and it's sometimes it's tiring. So as a leader, you need to also look after yourself. And I think maybe a last point is the shift from being almost a survivalist yourself to focusing on retaining your strategic focus. And the other thing that I think is also very important is really focusing on real relationships that are long-term, that are trusted relationships between, developing the team around you is absolutely critical. And really ensuring that you're taking people with you in the process.
Thank you.
So the floor is now open. If anybody wants to ask any questions, you are more than welcome to. We have the question answer function, or you can just type it into the chat. Yeah, we welcome all questions. There's no such thing as a silly question, so feel free to ask. I'll give you a couple of minutes, and then if no one has anything to ask, then we can move on.
I just want to have one comment. Is also, I found it very interesting that your onboarding process was extended from 2 days to 2 to 3 weeks. I think that onboarding is not just an event; it's quite a process. And then also you're connecting people with real people in the industry. So whilst the teaching component and the project was great. And then the third thing that was my particular interest in emotional intelligence, I found that the support that you provide on wellness. So those were some different things in terms of not what you're doing in the training and what you're teaching them, but more how you're doing it. So thanks for sharing those lessons and the whole presentation.
Wouter, you appear to have quenched the thirst for knowledge, as we're not getting any questions through. But thank you so much for the presentation. It was really fascinating, and there was some surprising information there as well. So thank you ever so much for that. The course is delivered 100% online. So the reason that we've done it that way is that it can fit around your life and your circumstances. The course is designed for working professionals to balance around your busy work life and busy social and family life as well. The duration is 24 months and it's part-time. So the units are generally kind of split across the years, and that makes it a lot easier for you to manage the time as well. The delivery of it is in partnership with the University of Melbourne. So if you have any queries about the application process, then they will come through to me in the Manchester team, and we'll do what we can to help. And the admissions is looked after by the University of Melbourne, as is the delivery of the course. We generally expect around 15 to 20 hours per week of study, but you can fit that in whenever you like. So because it is 100% online, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep because of the heat wave, then you can just get up and you can do a little bit of work if you want to, and that's absolutely fine. Or when you've just got home from work on your lunch break, whenever you like. It really is designed so that you can work it around your needs. The next enrollment is for September 2022. and applications are open. So I will be talking a little bit about that in a minute. And the fees are in Australian dollars. At the moment, fees are $28,164. We don't expect you to pay that in a one. Don't worry. That is split into installments throughout the year, and once you've applied, should you receive an offer, you will then get information about the payment installments from Melbourne. So I'm going to move on to Natalie, who is going to talk to us a little bit more about how this course is designed to help you reach your goals. So over to you, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Noah. Really just want to say that to point to the things on the side, the top 5 hardest to find soft skills from a report that DevEx did in 2020 is leadership, empathy and cross-cultural sensitivity, problem solving, flexibility and conflict resolution. So these softer skills are an essence of leadership. So our whole focus is on how to develop you as a leader. And just to very briefly say that we have 5 modules that are over 3 months each, and we start off and we look at what is happening in development so that you really understand the challenges in contemporary development. We then look at what is happening in leadership. What are the real challenges and the theories of leadership? And then we look at lead in development, which is bringing those two together to say, okay, well, now how does this play out in the development world? We then move on to looking at what happens in organizational development in terms of how do we make our organizations more resilient, more digitally friendly. And then we look at international management in this global world. What does it mean to manage and lead? And then we finally have a skills component that looks a lot at the skills. And then we look very, throughout all of this, we are teaching research skills and digital development skills. So it's a very integrated program, and you learn in small groups. So you work with your colleagues, and it is across different time zones. So it's wonderful. People are learning from Uganda to Indonesia to Timor, and so there's a whole range of places. So it's a basis of knowledge and skills. And there's a lot of real life scenarios. We have a simulation at the end, and then right at the end you write either dissertation, which is more academic, or you can do a group-based research project, which is very practice-oriented. And really, we're aiming to bring the divide between practice and academia closer together so that we can make a difference in development. Our ultimate goal is to really have an impact on development. Yaka always says, one day, he wants to see one of our graduates get the Nobel Prize for their contribution to the impact that they made on social justice and equity in the world. So that's who we're hoping to attract, those people who want to become the future Nobel Prize winners, or just a little Nobel Prize winner in your own area. So those are the programs. I'm a co-director on the program at Manchester. So academic queries, Noah will direct to me if there's something, but Noah is your point of contact. So I'm going to hand back to Noah, who just can tell you what to do if you're interested in the program.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Would it be great if we had a Nobel Prize winner? That'd be wonderful. You never know. Maybe one of you will be the one that's going to get that for us. So we're coming to the end, and I just want to say thank you for joining us, and thank you for your time. As Natalie said, I'm your course advisor, Noah, and if you have any questions about how to apply, or just the application in general, or you just want to ask some questions about the course, feel free to send an email through to studyonline@manchester.ac.uk, and just make sure that you put in the subject then it's for Leadership for Development, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. We can also arrange consultations. So one of the things that we do as course advisors is we will have a consultation for about half an hour, if you would like. And we go through your CV, we go through your questions that you have, and it just gives you a chance to ask questions directly, and you don't have to wait for an email back or somebody to be available. That's dedicated time, one-on-one for me and whoever wants to have a chat about the course. So we hope that we've answered all your questions. If you are interested in applying, you can scan the QR code, or if you go to the Masters of Leadership for Development webpage, there is an apply link there. So the applications are now open for September, so there's no better time to get your applications in. As I said, if you scan the QR code that's on the screen now, that'll take you to our application page, or the website is manchester.ac.uk/study/online-blended-learning/courses. And then that will give you a list of all of our courses, and you'll see the Master of Leadership for Development there. Give that a click, and the apply link is right at the top. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'll just have a quick check and see that we've not got any last minute questions. We do not. Okay, well, I hope you all have a wonderful day. This has been a really interesting presentation. Thank you so much for your time, Wouter, and you as well, Natalie. And hopefully we will see you in September. So thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.